Are you trying to achieve that big, massive drum sound that we hear in pretty much every live worship album today? You might even be in a place where you just aren't pleased with your drums at all, whether in the room or live stream. Well, stick around, and today I'm gonna show you everything you need to do before you mic your drums up. I wanna talk about gear first. And I'm gonna go in order of importance, especially if you're working within a budget. So first, the snare drum. Today we're using a 6.5 by 14 inch Black Beauty. If you're not familiar with the Black Beauty, it's used in almost every modern worship album today, so I guarantee you've heard it if you listen to worship music. This is a brass snare drum. Brass works really well in a worship environment, but you can use wood. There are other materials out there, aluminum. As long as it's high quality, you can get that sound, but we're gonna start with brass, and there's a ton of snare drums out there that mimic the Black Beauty if you're working on a budget, and so that's great news for you. Now, the second most important thing to material is the size of the drum. 14 inches is a pretty standard size for modern worship music. I wouldn't go any lower unless we're working in other genres like gospel, but 14 inches, golden standard. 6.5 is the depth, and I wouldn't go any shallower than 6.5. You could go up to 8 inch. I've seen people have a lot of fun with really, really deep snare drums, and you can do that. But 6.5 by 14 is a very standard size. You cannot go wrong. Now let's talk about cymbals. Cymbals can make or break your worship kit setup. And there are 3 things that you need to keep in mind when you're picking cymbals. 1, size. 2, weight. And 3, tonality. Let's talk about size here. I'm working with a pair of 16-inch Istanbul hats, an 18-inch Pisces Crash, and a 22-inch Istanbul Ride. Now, the reason size matters with cymbals in a worship environment is we want these really big, washy sound. That's what worship music often calls for. When we're in big choruses and we're crashing the ride, it just tends to be a genre of bigger, washier cymbals. Now, with bigger, washier cymbals comes loudness. And we all know in worship environments, loudness is a pretty big problem that we face. And so this is where weighting comes in. Okay, so every manufacturer is gonna have a light to heavy weight scale. And a really easy way to test this is even on this ride right here. There's a ton of flex. You can see that, a ton of flex. This is a very light ride. A heavier ride, you wouldn't be able to flex it like that. What that gives you is a washier, but not as loud, harsh tone when you're crashing these cymbals, when you're hitting them in a live setting. Okay, but now moving on to tonality. There is this bright versus dark spectrum with tonality. Again, we want to go on the darker side in worship music. Light tends to be this really shrill, piercing sound that doesn't give you that washy effect that we want in worship music. Dark is going to fit better in a mix. It's not going to compete with your lead vocals, and it's going to complement that larger size in that lighter weighting that we've chosen for a worship environment. Now let's talk about our shells. You might be wondering, why are shells third on the list of priorities? Frankly, shells are just pretty easy to get dialed in a worship context. The kick drum, crucial, but you can get a 20-inch kick, a 22-inch kick, a 24-inch kick, birch, mahogany, maple. You can get it sound great in a worship environment. Today we're using a 9 by 13-inch rack tom, a 16 by 16-inch floor tom, and a 14 by 24-inch kick drum. Massive sizes, but there are really 2 things we need to consider when we're picking our shells. We're gonna talk about size, and we're gonna talk about the material, okay? Size is the most important when we're picking out our shells. Rack toms, don't go any smaller than a 12-inch tom in a modern worship setting. Unless we're gonna play songs that call for more gospel genre, 12 inch is a great starting point for a rack tom. Floor tom, 16 inches. If you go smaller than 16 inches, 14 inch, some people will use a 14-inch shell. Oftentimes front of house is just gonna try to create that 14-inch to be a 16-inch. Let's just go to the real thing. We'll go to 16. We don't need more than 2. Some people have 3 toms, some people use 4 toms. That's great, whatever rocks your boat. But very basic setup, 12, 16, 13, 16, great choices. Now our kick drum is a 14 by 24, kind of an odd size, more of a vintage style size, but still you can get that great modern worship sound with a big kick drum like this. And everything comes down to tuning at the end of the day anyways. Now, as far as material, we're using maple. You can use birch, you can use mahogany. Again, maple just tends to be the most desirable in a worship context. A question we get all the time is, what type of kit should I buy? What manufacturer? Today we're using a Franklin. We love Franklin Drum Company. They're incredible. They have done a great job kind of pursuing a vintage style drum kit that works amazing in a modern worship environment. But DW, Pearl, Tom, I mean, there's so many manufacturers out there, and frankly, there isn't one gold standard. Many great options. Just remember, size and material. Two very important things to consider when you're picking out your shells. Now, fourth, let's talk about hardware. This is last on the list. You do not need to go spend thousands of dollars on DW hardware. I love DW hardware, no hate, but we're using Yamaha hardware today. It works great, so much more affordable. There are so many affordable solutions out there with hardware. I would not skimp on your snare, cymbals, or shells so that you can buy the beefiest, most expensive hardware out there. So we've talked about gear, but there are a few things that can ruin the results you're going for, even if you have some of the best gear available today. And that is your head choice and the way you tune your drums. So we're gonna talk about that next. Okay, first we're gonna talk about head choices. No matter what manufacturer, Remo, Evans, Aquarian, they all pretty much have similar characteristics, and we're gonna talk about two really important factors when picking drum heads, whether for your batter side or your resonant side, is the ply, so the thickness of the drum head, and then what we're gonna call the finish, clear or coated, or sometimes a blend of both with drum heads. So today on the snare drum, we are going to use a single ply resonant head, the Ambassador, the Remo Ambassador. For Evans, it's the Evans G1. Single ply, simple drum head that's been around a long time, works great on the resonant side of the drum. On the batter side of the drum, we're gonna use a Remo controlled sound. Now this is a 2-ply coated head, but the middle has a dot, and that dot ultimately turns it into a 3-ply head in the middle of the drum, right here, right? And what that does ultimately gives you lasting durability because the snare drum gets wailed on over and over again. So durability is gonna help a ton, but it also helps, it's in the name, kind of control the sound. Oftentimes we find ourselves putting moon gel or gaff tape or rings around our drums because they're ultimately probably poorly tuned, but also the head might be too thin on top, might be a 2-ply head. This little combination of a 3-ply in the center, 2-ply around the edges, kind of helps best of both worlds. So we're gonna get these on, and I'll teach you how to tune up your snare drum. So I'm gonna talk about resonant heads for a second. Oftentimes what I see is that people never change their resonant heads. Now, granted, you don't need to change your resonant head maybe as often as you're changing your batter side head, but still, it's really important to have a quality resonant head on your drum. So if you just bought brand new drums, change the resonant heads. Don't use the ones that came from the factory. Oftentimes you're gonna get better results if you just get all new heads, top and bottom of your drums. Kick, snare, toms. Okay, while we're changing our resonant head, I'm gonna actually upgrade our snare wires. Evans Pure Sound 30 strand is the way to go. It's a very inexpensive and easy way to better your snare sound. Okay, a very important thing to do while you're changing heads, batter or resonant side, stretch out your heads, especially on snare and toms. Makes a massive difference. After you've gotten your drums tuned up, you've played for a little bit and you're like, what happened? Where did all that hard work go? Yeah, it's because your heads are stretching that whole time. So we've got this drum on a drum throne. We'll get to why that's important when we get to tuning it, but all these lugs are just finger tight. Just got them all finger tight. I'm just gonna press down on the drum. just like if you were stretching out strings on a guitar. Trust me, you're not gonna break the drum. Put some serious force into it, get it really stretched out, and you're gonna do that a couple times as you get your drum tuned up to where you want it. So I've done 3 rounds of bringing this drum, this resonant head, up to pretty good tension. I'm not sure exactly if it's where we're gonna need it yet, but it's important to note, while I'm bringing this drum up, I'm going in a star pattern. And so I'm going 1 turn and counting as I go. 2, move over to left, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10. So I'm going across the drum, moving over, going across the drum, moving over, going across the drum. That helps you bring the drum up to tune in round. And I always count as I go because you start to lose track as you're going around this drum, and you want to make sure that certain lugs are not getting brought up disproportionately to other lugs. And as I said before, continue to stretch out the drum every time you go across doing that star pattern. I want to talk about a really helpful tool when you're changing drum heads and tuning your drums up for the first time after you get those new heads on. It's called a TuneBot. It's like $99. You can get it on Amazon, probably next day delivery. But what this ultimately does is help you get your drum up to a standard tuning range so you don't feel like you're just turning and shooting in the dark. Just makes it a little bit more mathematical for you. And you might be wondering, okay, well, what's the right frequency to get my drums up to? We have a free drum tuning guide in the description below. Download that, and we give you the numbers for every single drum in the kit, batter side and resonant side. So we want to get the resonant side of this snare up to 359 Hertz. So we'll clip this on to the drum, and then you want to put the drum on a throne like I have here. It'll mute the other head so you don't have competing frequencies while you're measuring with the TuneBot. And you want to just hit very lightly. It's very sensitive. So just a quick little hit in the center. So it looks like I'm in that 220 range, so I have a bit to go. I'm gonna get this drum up as close to 359 as possible, and then we'll move on. So now we've gotten the resonant side of the snare drum up to 359. Now we want to actually get these lugs in round with one another because I was just counting my turns as I was bringing it up. So there's definitely gonna be some discrepancies in their tonality as we go around the drum. I'm just gonna place a finger softly on the drum to keep it muted a bit. So I can hear this lug is a little bit flat down than the other lugs. So I'm gonna turn to the right and tune it up a little bit. And then this one over here was a little high, and I'm gonna bring it down just a little bit, turn it left. This one's a little high, I'm gonna bring it down. Overall, it's sounding pretty good. Flip it over, get the batter side changed. Okay, this is super important. You realize how much wear this batter side head on the snare drum has gotten. No surprise, these things get wailed on week after week, but sometimes it's hard to tell when they're tuned up how much wear they actually have. This one, there's physical dents in it. It is time to change this head. So I've done the same thing with the batter side head. I'm going for 240. So the batter side is often gonna be a little bit looser than the resonant side. In almost all the drums, it gets a little different around the toms and kick, and we'll talk about that in a minute. But we're going for 240. Right now I'm at 214, I'm close. Give it a few more turns, and we should be there. All right, so we've gotten the batter side head changed, done exactly everything we did on the resonance side, but we brought it up to 240. Now we are going to check the fundamental tuning. It means take it off the throne, put it on the stand, and we're going to measure the hertz while not dampening the resonant side of the head. The goal is to get in the 170 range. We're pretty dang close at 168, right? And so again, making sure now that it's off, checking the round, making sure all the lugs are in round with one another. Bring those snares on, and now you can pretty dang good. And it's gonna stretch out here as we continue to change out the heads on the kit, so we'll need to monitor those lugs, but I'm pretty pleased with it. I think we're in a good spot. Okay, now it is time for the toms. The good news is a lot of what I showed you, the principles of changing the heads on the snare, are going to apply to the toms. Of course, different frequency ranges we wanna go, the 13 and the 16-inch tom. As far as heads go, we're using the exact same heads for the 13 and 16-inch between one another. They are the Remo Ambassador, like we had on the snare, on the resonant side of the tom, just a single ply clear head. And then on the batter side, we're using, again, the controlled sound, but this time on the toms, it is a clear controlled sound. So there is quite a difference between clear and coated, but I'm gonna condense it down for you. Oftentimes with clear heads, you're gonna get more attack, and with coated heads, you're gonna get more warmth. And depending on the genre of what you're playing in your church, style of music, you might desire either or, and that's okay. We prefer a more attacky tom sound, but we get that extra warmth through that third ply in the center of the toms, and again, helps with lasting durability. Okay, so we got this thing on the resonant side up to the 182 range. That's exactly where we want to be. And now we're going to get it in round, flip it over, and do the batter side. Okay, we got the batter side up to 139 on the tune bot. We're gonna get this thing on here and check the fundamental tuning now. Okay, so here's a great example of numbers can be a guide, but ultimately you have to go off of what sounds good. We wanted fundamental tuning to be around 93, but it's sitting right around 100, and I really like the way that this tom sounds. Sounding pretty great. We're gonna move on to the floor tom. .137 is the golden number on the resonant side of the floor tom. Let's move on to the batter side. We got this thing up to 104 on the batter side. Now we're going to check the fundamental tuning. All right, we got the fundamental tuning on the floor tom in the 70s, and it is sounding really good. We're gonna move on to the kick drum, and then we're gonna put it all together. Okay, so moving to the resonant side of the kick drum. I'll be honest, you don't need to change this a whole lot. Franklin has sent us this kit with this Franklin resonant head on it, and we really like it, so we're gonna keep it on. But a standard rule of thumb when you're changing the resonant head on your kick drum, or if you're just retuning the one you have already, is get all the lugs hand tight, and then just take it 1/2 turn at a time. I just, here for the sake of example, started with 1/2 turn after finger tight. We'll see how it sounds and if we need to make any adjustments after we listen to it. Okay, so on the batter side of the kick drum, we're using an Evans EMAD2. Huge fan of this head, obviously clear. Some people use coated. Again, personal preference is gonna give us a ton of attack when we go to play in the modern worship style. So it comes with these 2 dampening rings. We typically are gonna use the bigger one. We want more dampening on a kick drum than most other genres. So put this around in, and then we'll get it on and show you how we tune it up. Let's talk about dampening for a second. Some people use pillows, blankets. Evans actually makes this, they call it an EQ pad. It's a great place to start. It has some Velcro. You can put it in the inside of your drum and start there. If you need to add more, you can, but we're gonna use this in this application. All right, so we got the IS MxU on the kick drum, just hand tight on all the lugs, and you'll notice it's pretty wrinkly. And guess what? It's gonna stay that way. So really what we wanna do is get these lugs tight enough to where they're not falling off, but we're just gonna stop there, see how it sounds. I should also mention that most batter side kick heads come with this little extra ply to put in front of your kick beater. So wait to put it on until you actually get this thing set up and you get your beater on it so you can know exactly where it goes. All right, we got the kick drum back in place. I think it sounded pretty great. Very easy to dial in, probably one of the easiest components of a drum kit to dial in when you're reheading. Okay, we have everything reheaded and tuned. It is time to put it all together. I'm gonna do a quick playthrough of the chorus of praise. Man, I love the way these drums sound. I hope this video encourages you. It is not all that difficult to get great sounding drums in the church. And of course, there is so much that happens beyond what we did today. How do we mic the drums? How do we process them at front of house? Luckily, we have all that training available on MxU as well. I'll put a few links in the description below so you can go check those out. I also mentioned earlier the free drum tuning guide. Please download that resource. It'll be immensely helpful to you as you try to replicate some of what we've done here today with reheading and tuning. Always like and subscribe if these videos are helpful to you. We hope to see you next time.